In a gloomy prison, we meet Dante, the protagonist of our story, who dreams of freedom and longs to experience life outside, a world he can glimpse only through a small opening in the wall. This tiny window grants him hope, yet it torments him, as what he desires most lies a mere 30 centimeters away. The scene shifts abruptly. A ship sinks into the depths of the sea, with flames from the gunpowder room being the only light piercing the darkness that will soon engulf the survivors. Here we realize we are witnessing a memory from Dante's past. That tragic night was one of the few he experienced before being confined to that prison. On that night, he met Angel, a beautiful woman who had taken a reckless yet brave action, hiring a ship to deliver an important message written by Napoleon himself. But as we saw, tragedy struck, and now both the message and Angel are in the hands of Danglars, a man teetering between being a sailor and a pirate. Drawn by the flames from the ship, he arrived just in time to exploit the situation. The message and Angel were at the mercy of Danglars, who refused to return them without compensation. When the ship finally arrived in Marseille, Angel promised to provide the necessary funds to retrieve the message. Consequently, Danglars decided to let her go, but only with Dante, who remained imprisoned in his cell, awaiting his fate. Despite Danglars' explicit orders, Dante defied him, jumping off the ship to save Angel. This act enraged Danglars, who demanded that Morel, the fleet owner, fire Dante for insubordination. However, Morel supported Dante, emphasizing that every life has value. What Dante did was the right thing. As a result, Morel decided to promote Dante to the position of captain while dismissing Danglars. Moreover, Morel introduced his grandson, Maximiliano, to Dante, asking him to teach the young man to be just and noble like himself. As a reward, Dante would receive a higher salary. Dante could hardly believe his ears. After years of service, he was now the captain of a ship. The news was so overwhelming that he felt an immense excitement to share it with his wife, Mercedes. Upon hearing the good news, Mercedes couldn't contain her joy. Now that Dante had achieved a respectable and honorable position, it was the perfect time to propose marriage. The two mounted the first horse they found and headed to the Herrera family farm to share their happiness. During the celebration dinner, everyone congratulated Dante, who had become the youngest captain in the region, a remarkable achievement. However, Fernand, Mercedes' cousin, interrupted the engagement announcement with less important topics, leading everyone to postpone the declaration. While strolling on the ship, Dante expressed his feelings toward Mercedes, stirring Fernand's jealousy. In truth, Fernand had been madly in love with his cousin for years, and seeing her with a man more successful than himself ignited envy in his heart. Yet he managed to conceal his resentment and continued accompanying them on their tour. Weeks later, the wedding day arrives and Dante waits eagerly for his beloved Mercedes at the altar. Mercedes walks down the aisle dressed in the most beautiful gown in the colony, accompanied by her father, who feels proud to give his daughter to a worthy man. Unfortunately, before they can unite in marriage, several royal guards storm the church, arresting Dante and taking him to Gerard, the public prosecutor. Gerard accuses him of supporting the deposed Emperor Napoleon based on a letter found aboard the ship, hidden in a Bible bearing Dante's name. Dante tries to explain that his cabin was used to hide Angel during the journey to Marseille, but this does not absolve him of the charges, and he ends up in a cell while his case is being reviewed. Determined to help Dante, Fernand heads to the palace. Convinced of Dante's innocence, he bursts into Gerard's office unannounced, only to find him speaking with Danglars. Unaware of the old connection between Danglars and Dante, Fernand does not suspect the conspiracy at hand. He demands a moment of Gerard's time, only to be persuaded that this situation is an opportunity that benefits everyone. Danglars regains his ship, Gerard earns a promotion for capturing a traitor, and Fernand wins Mercedes. A perfect deal. Meanwhile, Dante spends a week in his cell, enduring daily beatings as the guards demand information about Napoleon that he does not possess. At the palace, Victoria, Angel's sister and Gerard's lover, confronts the prosecutor, demanding the return of the letter. She reveals that she and her sister supported Napoleon and blackmails him, threatening to expose their affair and her pregnancy, which could ruin his marriage and lead to his expulsion from the palace. However, Gerard, indifferent to the unborn child's fate, attacks and subdues her, leaving her fate uncertain? As time passes, Dante's mental state begins to deteriorate in the dark cell. Yet he hears voices. One in particular stands out. Following the sound, he discovers that his neighbor has been digging a tunnel through the wall, and they finally manage to see each other. Day by day, they work together in the dark to expand the tunnel, eventually meeting in one place. For the first time in years, they feel alive again, sharing stories and planning their escape. Faria, the wise old man, strikes a deal with Dante. He will take on most of the digging in exchange for revealing a great secret passed down through his family for generations. The secret involves a treasure buried by the Knights Templar on the island of Monte Cristo. Over time, Dante regains his will to live and sets his sights on a new goal: to return to Mercedes as a wealthy and powerful man. Faria begins sharing the story of the treasure piece by piece. It was a fortune amassed by the Knights Templar and hidden on Monte Cristo during the Crusades. Most who knew of its location perished, except for the commander Espada, who fled to a small colony and raised his son with the Templar traditions. That son was Faria, who now offers half of the treasure in exchange for freedom. Over the next several years, the duo works tirelessly every night, careful not to alert the guards. Finally, after a decade, they reach soft, salty earth, an unmistakable sign that they are nearing their goal. Dante and Faria are momentarily overjoyed as they near freedom, but the sound of a collapse shatters their hopes. Faria suffers fatal injuries, though Dante manages to pull him out of the rubble. The worsening wounds lead to Faria's death 3 days later. When the guards arrive to transport the body, they place it in a cloth sack. Dante, seizing the moment, switches places with the corpse inside the sack. The sack is carried out of the prison and thrown from a high cliff into the sea. Fortunately for Dante, the sack does not hit the rocks during the fall. He escapes from the bag and begins swimming toward the shore, finally gaining his freedom. After days of walking, he reaches the Herrera family's estate, hoping to speak with his father, who had served Mercedes for years. Sadly, a servant informs him that the estate is abandoned, and his father passed away years ago. In search of answers, he learns that Mercedes married Fernand and that they left the estate over 8 years ago, shortly after the birth of their son Albert. Shocked that Mercedes did not wait even a year for him, Dante resolves to fulfill his promise to Faria. He travels to the island of Monte Cristo, follows the clues left by Faria, and discovers a hidden vault filled with treasures. A year later, Dante returns to Marseille in disguise. He meets with Caris, Danglars' deputy, and deceives him with a fabricated story, claiming to be a messenger sent by Dante himself, who is presumed dead. He presents a jewel as a gift for Mercedes. Convinced, Caris reveals everything he knows. Here, Dante uncovers the conspiracy orchestrated by Gerard, Danglars, and Fernand to betray him and strip him of everything. Even Morel, his once supportive ally, fell victim to the plot, losing his fleet and being forced to sell his possessions at paltry prices. Dante also learns that Victoria was forced into marriage with Danglars, while Angel fell into the hands of vile men who coerced her into prostitution. Determined to restore justice, Dante tracks down Angel, finding her in a wretched state, frail and gravely ill. On her deathbed, Angel confesses her struggles since Dante's imprisonment. She reveals that she tried to help him, even offering herself to Gerard, but one night found him digging a grave. After he left, she discovered the body of a small child barely alive. She saved him, named him André, and placed him in an orphanage. Later, Gerard discovered her actions and sold her to the men who abused her. Dante searches for André and informs him about his father, Gerard, who tried to kill him, offering him opportunities for vengeance. 5 years later, Fernand has risen to prominence as a celebrated general and announces his retirement from the army to join the Council of Nobles alongside Gerard, who holds a prestigious position. Meanwhile, Danglars has crowned himself the King of the Seas after seizing control of the region's ships. One night, as Fernand returns home in his carriage, he is ambushed by a thief who steals a prized medal from him. Albert, eager to impress his father, chases after the thief but soon finds himself cornered. Fortunately, Dante appears just in time to save him, leaving before revealing his true identity. The next day, Fernand and his son visit Dante's estate, where he now introduces himself as the Count of Monte Cristo, concealing his real identity. Dante begins to infiltrate the circle of nobles, carefully executing each step of his meticulously planned revenge. His first move is introducing Albert to a beautiful young woman named It, whom he adopted and raised to serve his ultimate goal. It and Albert quickly develop an attraction to one another. A few days later, Dante is invited on a hunting trip, bringing along André, who has become a skilled assassin under his training. During the gathering, Danglars introduces his daughter Eugenia and appears with Victoria, whom he keeps imprisoned in his home. Later, Fernand summons Mercedes to the event. Dante remains composed, though Mercedes seems to recognize him for a fleeting moment, struck with surprise but saying nothing. The event proceeds with It making a timely appearance as part of Dante's plan, allowing Albert to catch a glimpse of her, further deepening his interest. With this, Dante convinces Albert to persuade his father to attend a grand ball on the island of Monte Cristo, a proposal Fernand initially refused due to his disapproval of It. However, realizing Dante's immense wealth, Fernand begins to see the arranged marriage between Albert and It as a strategic advantage. Finally, the night of the long-awaited ball arrives, and families begin strengthening their ties. Over time, André catches the attention of Eugenia, just as Albert becomes increasingly enchanted with It. Dante decides it is time to exact his revenge. The first blow falls on Danglars, who loses his entire fleet through a series of mysterious transactions that devalue his shares. Eventually, it is revealed that Dante, under another alias, orchestrated the operations that stripped Danglars of his maritime empire. Desperate, Danglars turns to Gerard, who arranges an urgent trial. However, the fictitious persona created by Dante, known as Halifax, does not appear in court because he never existed. Instead, André takes the stand, recounting his harrowing story in front of the region's most influential figures. He reveals Gerard as the man responsible for his suffering, detailing how he tried to bury him alive as a child. With this explosive revelation, the web of lies and conspiracies woven by Gerard, Danglars, and Fernand begins to unravel, setting each of them on a path toward accountability and justice. This revelation turns the Council of Nobles against Gerard, who prioritizes saving himself over aiding Danglars. Additionally, André confesses to Eugenia that they are half-siblings and that he never intended to pursue a relationship with her. However, defying Dante's orders, he lunges at Gerard and stabs him multiple times before being shot in the back by a guard. With Gerard dead and Danglars ruined, only Fernand remains. Having spent half his life imprisoned, Dante orchestrates his final plan for justice. Albert, deeply in love with Haiti, learns a shocking truth about her. She is the daughter of one of the enslaved people his father, Fernand, murdered during his life of atrocities. Though devastated, Albert struggles to accept it. When Dante challenges him to a duel for Haiti's honor, the impulsive young man risks his life for her, driven by passion and love. During the duel, Dante comes close to killing Albert, but Mercedes arrives at the critical moment, begging for mercy and revealing that she has always known his true identity. She confesses all that Fernand had done to him, but pleads with Dante to spare her son from punishment. The next day, Albert and Haiti, with Dante's blessing, plan to flee together. Meanwhile, Mercedes begins packing her belongings, determined to leave Fernand. Enraged, Fernand storms to confront Dante and challenges him to a duel. The two men engage in a fierce sword fight in the garden. During the battle, Dante reveals his true identity. Despite suffering a wound to his abdomen, Dante overpowers Fernand, who collapses from exhaustion. Yet Dante spares his life, telling him that justice has already been served as the truth has been revealed to everyone. The story concludes with Mercedes receiving a letter from Dante. In it, he tells her that he has left Marseille, explaining that fate has kept them apart, but that their children will carry on the love they once shared.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.